Have you ever wondered why when you pick up the guitar, it doesn't sound like the jazz on the records? Well, believe it or not, it's not your fault. There are plenty of blogs, resources, online courses, DVDs, books, magazines that are just simply telling you the wrong information. It's not about some fancy scales, it's not about speed, and it's not even about fixing that one magical thing that's going to make everything else sound jazzy. Actually, the truth is somewhere in the middle, and it's much simpler than that. In this video, I'll explain one, why you haven't been able to achieve that jazz sound just yet, and number two, I'll show you exactly how you can finally do it following a step-by-step process. And of course, make sure you stick until the end of this video, because as a bonus, I will give you the exact process in a 40-page document that you can take, read, study, and implement these things right in your playing right from the get-go on Jazz Standard. So let's get going. If you don't know me, my name is Mark from Jazz Guitar Lessons. So I've been teaching jazz guitar online for the past 15 years now, and I taught hundreds, if not thousands of students, and this is one of the biggest key points that comes across in my conversations with you guys is, hey, it doesn't sound like jazz when I play, right? So you may know the right scales, you may know all your arpeggios, know the progressions to tune, but there's that mystical like ingredients that's not coming together. So that's what we'll do today. Can you relate? If so, then this is for you. You may be an intermediate guitarist that's already proficient on the guitar technically, and you feel that maybe you had an easier time looking into other styles and even mastering other styles, but now you're looking to achieve these results in your sound for jazz comping and for jazz soloing. So here's my take on this. There are two main reasons why you don't sound like a jazz guitarist yet, even as an intermediate player or as a technically proficient player. So I want you to imagine a pyramid that you're trying to build, and you're trying to go as high as possible. So one of the ideas is, if you want to build a pyramid quickly, you will quickly put a base together maybe in 10 minutes and then go up to these next layers, which would be altered scales and fancy change running and pentatonic superimpositions. Yet if you don't take enough time building your base, it's going to feel wobbly at the top, right? So if I've given you 10 minutes to build a high pyramid, it's not the same game as if I'm giving you 10 days or 10 years to build your foundations. So here's a takeaway. Most of you guys struggling with the jazz side, you haven't established a foundation, and it's wobbly, and yet you're trying to do these things that are at the top. So that's a pretty simple case of you got to build strong foundations that are firm, anchored in really, really simple stuff that you fully master. And reason number two, now bear with me for a minute, okay? You get a chef, like a cook, a cooking chef in a restaurant that you know is really into studying new books and molecular cuisine and stuff like that. Yet that guy hasn't tasted salt in 5 recipes, 10, 25, or 100 recipes. When you tell him, well, you got to know what salt tastes like, right? But he says, no, I just want to pick up this new book and learn more recipes. So it's the same for you. If you learn salt, you need to hear the salt in different contexts. So if you have a diminished chord that's fancy, you'll hear it in a couple of tunes and you won't be able to differentiate. So you need to hear the salt, you need to hear that diminished chord in 5, 10, 25, 100 tunes before it really clicks. And so the reason number two is you don't necessarily have a context to put your learning into, and the context is the tunes and the progressions. So in summary, if you're struggling with this, one, you don't have solid foundations to go higher as a pyramid, and number two, you don't have contexts for the chops that you're trying to build and the different techniques. All right, so here's the solution. Here's my system in depth. Stay tuned, because I'm going to go through the exact step-by-step process that has worked for me and still works for hundreds of students, right? So you can use the timestamps below here or look at the description to find the different areas that we're going to focus on. Know that they stack up. Again, it's like a pyramid. You have to really hone into the first layer before you build the other things and really shoot higher. Let's get going. Here's our step one in the whole process. Typically, you'll walk into a jam or go with friends and they pull out a real book, right? And they put a chart in front of you like Blue Bossa, Autumn Leaves, Days of Wine and Roses, and you see all these complex chord shapes like minor 7 flat 5, going to this guy, going to, do I do 9s or flat 9s on this mark, etc. So we want to be good accompanists, but we can't be overwhelmed with complexity when we're doing a tune. Same as if you learned a Beatles tune or a Bob Dylan song, you were not outraged by the complexity of the chord shapes that you were strumming. You simply need a few chord shapes. So we want to translate this into jazz. The way we do this is we reduce complexity and we go and look at chords in 4 4 chords family. I'm summarizing this here, but basically we have the major, the minor, the dominants, and then we have the other ones. The other ones, the fourth kind, are like the diminished chords, the minor 7 flat 5, the crazier ones, right? So here's the point. You want technically to have one chord shape on the guitar, exactly one chord shape per chord symbol on your chart. And that's it. That's how we reduce the complexity. So to help you out and to help all my students, private or the people in the public on the blog, I've created the Staples chord cheat sheet. It's totally free to download, and you have root C on the 6th string, major, minor, dominant, minor 7 flat 5, major, minor, dominant, and minor 7 flat 5 from root 5 here and from root 6. And with those, you'll be able to encounter about 80% of your jazz standards that you will find. They will fit that model. So the very technical instructions to achieve this step and to solve this once and for all is to pick one chord shape on the guitar per chord symbol. You simplify to one of the 4 families, regardless if the chords look like postal code, Canadian postal codes, or if they look small. You will always think in terms of 4 main families. Then you will play the sound cleanly, thoroughly, beautifully on the guitar, and you will go through the shape, the chords in the form. So for an example, you can see in the description I've added a walkthrough of this with the staple cheat sheet, but also on Stella by Starlight, famous standard, where I go through each shape. I do it slowly, it's out of time, it's just an exercise in getting the fingers to go towards the proper chord on the fretboard. For instance, E minor 7 flat 5, following an A7 of some sort, and etc. Okay, now you're able to comp, sort of, you're out of time, but you have simplified the complexity of jazz into main families, pretty much like we do in rock or blues or pop. The kind of chord is summarized. Step 2, what is the glue between musicians? What's holding the band together? When does a drummer knows to hit the cymbal and the bass player to hit the root? How does it happen? And how can the audience relate? You know, you've been to a really good concert, your head will go like this, and you'll clap your hand, or you'll dance, or you'll tap your foot. What's that? Well, we have this timing aspect. We take an amount of time that passes by, and we subdivide it into equal parts. For instance, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is so essential, it's so foundational that as the second layer in our pyramid, we will now start to imply time within the staple voicings that we built previously. So we have to start of thinking about this idea of a conveyor belt. So the conveyor belt is both micro, like I just did 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It comes back around and around and around. And there's a macro conveyor belt. So for instance, if you're looking at the tune Blue Bossa, the conveyor belt is actually 16 bars. So it's important to play over the conveyor belt with the staple chords that you've developed in the previous step. So the technical musical instructions to build your second step is to play your staple chords in one really good timing. You can see in the description below I've added a mini class on how to do this with Charlestons. So there's 4 or 5 kind of different rhythms that I recommend from the get-go. You can play just chunk, chunk, chunk quarter notes on each beat. You can play Charlestons, you can play mixes, you can play whatever. Pick one and run through your chart and make sure that you count really out loud. So here's the first few bars of Stella by Starlight. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, right? And so on and so forth. This is what you have to do to build your foundation. So now you are reducing complexity of all your chord charts to 4 main chord families, I'd say probably 3 major, minor, dominants. And then you are applying the time, which means you can start to accompany someone who would play the melody or play a solo, and you can stick to your conveyor belt and keep rehearsing the form. Guess what? This is going to avoid you getting lost in the form while you take your solos later on. All right, moving on. We're making good progress. Step 3 here, super simple. Ever heard jazz guitarists that are trying to be sax players? Yeah, you know shredders? They're just like trying to blaze with all these sorts of notes. Like, what, you're not even playing a chord. Or worse, have you seen the guitar methods where you play Twinkle Twinkle on one string? Yeah. You know what I do when I hear that? I go, this is boring. So what do we want to do next is capitalize on the framework that this instrument is a harmonic instrument. It's like piano. We can play chords or we can play single notes, and we will finally start to play the tune. So the song that you picked in step 1, now you will start to play the melody of the tune. Pretty simply, you will answer the question, play me a song. You know, you're at barbecue in the neighborhood, people say, hey, you've been learning guitar, why don't you play me something? So you do that. Will you play just the chords? Nah. Will you play just the melody? Nah. What do you do then? Yeah, you will play some semblance of chords melody. And now, before you guys go to the Joe Pass realm of hypermania friggin' stratosphere, we can play a minimalistic version of a chord melody. It's pretty simple. I call it thin version, or this is a Schofield concept. It's like I play the melody and then I find what fits underneath. It doesn't have to be complex, but it has to be thorough so the listener can at least recognize the tune, right? So as you gain more proficiency with this process, you will be able to wing your own chord melody in the thin fashion. But in the description below, I've added a chord melody on Stella by Starlight. I'll just give you a few bars to show you how I would do it if I were winging it. And when I encounter standards I haven't played in a while or don't know, I will just sort of use this framework. I find a melody, and then I do what I can on the strings below. There are no rules, there are no right or wrong ways to do it, but the best thing is really look at my example and you'll see exactly what I mean. So here we go for Stella. So there's no full arrangement on I have to find a single chord for every note. It's not a math formula. I'm playing a tune and it's just pretty nice. So it's sort of a blend in between me doing a full single note line and a full comping. I'm sitting somewhere in between. And now, just to recap, we have chords out of time, reduced complexity, staples. They're amazing. And we have them in time, and now we can play the tune itself. So if someone asks me, play me a tune, well, I could sort of play the tune. It's not going to be fantastic. I'm not going to have a huge solo. I'm not going to have like tremendous nice forcings or whatever, but at least I can hold my own, and this is the process. Now let's put these staples back to use again in the next step. All right, we're making good progress here. So step 4, remember how easy it was when I guess you probably started guitar like me, like most of us, saying, we're playing a blues, and just tell me what key it's in. Just tell me what key it's in. Right? It's like, oh, I got these lines, I got these different pentatonics, and then that's the thing. Wasn't it easy? Yeah, I know, I remember. But here's the thing. That's not going to work well with jazz, and you have probably tried to look at a tune and go, I'm doing all the things you are. It's an A flat. Let me solo an A flat. And you will see really disappointing results from this in your jazz soloing if you only do that. So where do we start with jazz soloing? In jazz, there's a way that will have the most bang for your buck. This is the diminishing return curves, but you're going to get massive results early on by learning to delineate and outline the change from one chord to the next while you're improvising. We're playing the tune, all right? And no, this is for the listener. This is also for you. And no, this is not the friggin' chord scale thing. This is not saying I'm going to only solo on a single arpeggio for each chord. It's not any other gimmick. It's not learning to plug in licks. It's actually much more simpler than that. And just remember, there's going to be a shift in your paradigm in the way you hear it, in the way you think about it. Because I'll tell you, for you guys rock players, I'll use, say, an A minor chord, right? An A minor 7. Typically, you will hear this in a rock setting and go, and then you start. That's typically how you're going to proceed in a rock context. Chord hits, bang, and then you have your idea. In jazz, it's quite the opposite. In jazz, it's actually play the run into the A minor and bang, the chord happens. So we have to shift from playing from the moment the chord has rang into a chord that's about to ring. So it's effectively moving our mind in the timing. Again, we practice really good timing in the second step, remember? To start to think of our lines a bit ahead of time. And there's a really no-nonsense way to start doing that. Here's the instructions. Play the third degree of each of the chord on beat 1 when they happen. Or if there's more chords than one chord to a bar, well, God bless you. Number 1, you're playing bebop. But if you have a song like Autumn Leaves, or again, we've been doing Stella by Starlight through this video, you have a chord in each bar, typically. So you will place the third degree on beat 1. That's it. If you did your assignments with the staple chords correctly, typically you will find the third and the other 7th, but we're not going to talk about the 7th just now. You find this on the D and G string. So right in the middle of your instrument, the 2 middle strings will have these most important tones, and you can keep visualizing the chord shape, but only playing a part of it that says one note out of it, and it will lay on the 3rd or 4th string, so the D and G string. Now that's your first layer, and you tell me, Mark's like, what? The soloing is I'm going to play one note per chord. Yes, this is exactly what I'm saying. And yes, when people come to me with fairly good baggage, fairly good knowledge in rock, and they solo and everything, they say, well, jazz players can't switch mentally scales that fast. Yes, they can. Yes, the chords pass by, and the task switching is actually more important than the technical proficiency. The mental scale switch or arpeggio switch is what's going to happen in jazz that's going to bear tremendous fruit. So the next level of exercise, after I place my third degree of the chord on the beat, so for Stella, something like that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. You can see the link in the description for the actual written example. After I'm able to do that, I will approach with one note above. So I like to think of a landing strip. Again, the third is here, and I go dee boom, and I land into it. So on Stella, it could be something like 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, notice the counting. 2, 3, 2. I'm only giving you the roots so you have an idea of what you can sink your teeth into. It's like, oh, that's what the chord changes are. So when you're able to put the third on the beat, you're able to approach the third. Now you're really going to town, because now you're starting to pick up into chords. So a good milestone I give myself and any potential student in and out of the coaching program, link in the description below, of course, it will be 3 8-note pickups, meaning that you will play N4, N1. Pada bada. I'll just do it on C because we're doing this video here. So it's a C major 7. You have a C note here, and you're going to go 1, 2, 3 notes up within the scale. It doesn't matter how they analyze pertaining to that degree, because our target is really to go, it's a third of C, we want to do E. So we go a 1, 2, 3, F. That's it. Again, a 1, 2, 3, F4, and 1. Right? That's it. It's that simple. It's pada bada. Don't make it too complex. What scale or arpeggio, what notes pertain to that approach? The notes of the chords you're about to play. It's a pickup into it. And with that, you got your 4 steps down. 4 steps. So just to summarize and synthesize, you got your chord complexity reduced. You are able to play on a conveyor belt, which means you can stay in time. You can play the tune, so we hear it. You have a chord melody, pseudo chord melody, miniature arrangement, and now you can make the changes. Before we move on to the next step about that making the changes, is this the only way to solo? No, it's not, okay? The song Blue Bossas in C minor, for sure play your C minor lick. You don't have to obsess about making the changes, but for sure, making the changes is one of the trick in a jazz player's trick bags that will help you outline the chords perfectly before we move on to the next steps where you can really evolve your vocabulary. So let's move on to step 5 now. All right, guys, step 5. What happens at a jam session? Do you have time to go like, I'm not sure, is this an F sharp or is this a... Yeah, train wreck. The song's over by the time you decided which notes you're going to play or which scale you're going to play. So this is exactly what we're going to do in the next step. We're going to simulate a jam session. We want to simulate the live aspect of the jam session for the benefit of synthesizing our 4 previous steps in the process. So before I get into the nitty-gritty of how to do it, I'm just going to tell you to synthesize. That's the main takeaway here, but also a second takeaway is this is a great measuring stick. And there's a video I published recently about my song list. I have this little paper and I jotted it down. I had that as a kid while I was playing gigs in restaurants and cocktails. And the point here is, if I can play this tune completely and have a synthesis of it, I'm not scared that the drummer or sax player or anyone, the singer, will call that tune on me, go, hey, Mark, do you want to play Summertime? Or do you want to play Confirmation or Invitation? Oh, I haven't rehearsed that song in like 3 months. So not only is that step 5 a synthesis, but it's also a good measuring stick. What do I mean? It's a great way to tell myself, if I'm lying to myself, that I know the tune. So I will play the melody. I'll play some comping. I'll play some improv or a skeleton of improv, which would be playing the thirds and resolving, doing all this work. I'll play the head out, so I have a concise version. And this version, I call this a 4CE. You've heard this on the blog before. 4 chorus exercise. So you're going to play 4 choruses or 4 conveyor belts just to put you on the spot. So instructions, do this in time with a metronome. Okay, don't fool yourself. You gotta play it in time. So for your first chorus, you may play a bit of the chord melody you created in step 3. For your comping chorus, you're gonna play what you've done in step 2. You're gonna play in good time with a good rhythm, a single rhythm like the Charleston. Then you play a bit of a solo. What solo? Well, whatever you want, but actually you should really attempt to make the changes. If you're not able to make the changes as defined step 4, you're not really soloing jazz, right? And then head out, you play the chorus again of the chord melody or the melody, and you're done. What do you do with that information? Record yourself. You know, we have iPhones in our pockets now. Record yourself, film, watch it, and go, really, I forgot the chords to the bridge. And don't fool yourself. Don't stop the process, because that is your measuring stick. You're building an archive of your own playing, and you're able to pinpoint and fix the stuff on the go. So here's the process. You have 5 individual segments that you can work up on any or all songs that you're working on. I highly, strongly suggest that you aim to do this on at least 5 tunes, and ideally 10 to 15 to solve the problem of context, all right? Because after you have that, I call this my little folder. If you have that folder of tunes, then it becomes easier to work on your vocabulary. Whether it is more fancy comping vocabulary, you know, complex chords and stuff you'll start to understand, or more complex means to solo. I've given you one, which is third resolutions, but if you go anywhere on YouTube and go jazz improv, oh my God, you're gonna find altered scales. Yeah, sorry, my stuff. Diminished scales, you're gonna find fancy licks, etc. But if you tackle those within the context of your folder of your tunes, then it's going to start to make more and more sense. So to recap, you have the 5 steps. They've given you a really good experience on tackling more and more repertoire. You're building your song list. You're going, how do I play standards? That's how you do it. Then the next 2 steps, the step 6 and 7 in my worldview, I call this the comping workout and the improv workout, which I won't address in this video. Now, how do you move forward? What's the next step? So you can apply all of the above on your own with either a local instructor, some YouTube videos, and with a lot of will and might. And trust me, this is pretty challenging. Or you can decide to work directly with me. I'm a jazz coach and instructor. So what I shared before in this video is 100% how I work with my students. So there's no secret hidden course or concept. There's nothing I will reveal once you start studying with me. This is exactly how we do it, and it works. So yes, to help you implement all of these concepts, I have a coaching program, of course, and this is where with students we aim to do the process before the 5 steps on 5 to 15 tunes within the first year. Depending on your needs, also depends on students. Some people are further along with the chord melody or soloing, and the program is for a year, and it's based around really getting feedback and guidance from yours truly. Now, unfortunately, the current state of my coaching is that I'm fully booked. So if you would like to take the next step, what I recommend you do is look in the description below for a link to get on a list, and I will be contacting you with the new cohort once it opens, also with some kind of offer. So every new cohort, I offer a little special customized bonus to the people that come in. So you will be the first to know when it opens, when you use the link, and you just fill out your name and email and phone number, etc. I'll be in touch. And our very next step after that will be to get on a call, the 2 of us. So it's going to be on Zoom. It's going to be with me. It's totally free of charge. And it's just to assess, like, hey, you know, what have you been doing that's working or not working? Where you'd like to head? Where are you going with your jazz skills? And how I can better help you. And if there's a fit, we can discuss getting into the coaching program. Of course, I'll share the timeline and everything that it entails in working together. Then you can make a decision if you'd like to join us. So basically, I'll invite you to just, give me your contact information, and I'll be in touch personally with you. Only the people on this list get the offer before I really open to the public, because there's a lot of people on the list, and there's a lot of people on YouTube and on Facebook, etc. Over 100,000 people. So I will do this very custom, very homegrown, very small, so I can ensure that you have the maximum amount of results. Of course, you can see the reviews page, jazzguitarlessons.net/reviews. I've been having tremendous results with hundreds, if not thousands of students. So get on the list. And meanwhile, if you want to retake that class that I just given you, there is a free group on School. It's called the Fellowship, and the Fellowship is free forever, and it contains the rundown of these examples on Stella by Starlight with tabs and sound slice. It's free to take, but you have to create your account and to join the community. So it's a great place to hang out with me, with other students, and to see how other people are doing. You can post your videos, you can ask questions, and there's always special little contests and things we do with video postings. Plus, the training is free. I mean, it's free if you join. So if you're interested in learning jazz and really honing on your skills and building your foundations finally, and being able to taste the salt, this minor 755 chord, you want to hear it in different contexts, simply join the fellowship. I will see you on the rest of this channel and on Jazz Guitar Lessons. Improve your jazz guitar playing with a real teacher. See you next time. Take care. Bye.